energy tips for week 30. That is July 21st till 27th. My name is Jona Bryndis and I'm a professional energy healer, and I do these weekly energy updates and energy tips videos here for you so that you as empath or energetically sensitive can better contextualize what it is that is influencing you and your choices, right? When you watch these energy tips, I often refer to the energy update. So it's essential that you actually watch the energy update before you watch the energy tips. I try to be as inclusive and comprehensive as I can, but I also don't want to make it too long. Here, I'm going to go through the translation of these collective energies in your energy centers, in your physical, in your emotional, in your intellectual, in your relationship life, and also how to contextualize this spiritually and what you can do as far as energy work and energy awareness is concerned. So the big theme here for this next week now, after these really intense weeks of emotional bombardment, is the emotional integration. So I have already mentioned terms such as emotional maturity, emotional literacy, things like that. Those are all words, all right? But I want you to understand that the reason why I do these energy tips is not to throw just sort of lingo at you, but is to make you understand really what the larger perspective is and what the greater processes are that are behind the way you perceive things. However, I also want to remind those of you who have been around for a while and who are doing this avidly and who are really involved in their own self-healing, I want to remind you that sometimes this intellectualizing of all of this and especially in the words that we choose, it can also distance and disconnect us from our inner processes. So I really want you to remember that it's in the feeling, okay? It's in the feeling of all these terms, not so much the terms. We don't really have a good lingo yet for energy work. Understand this, all right? So I have to resort to new age terms as well. I have to resort to religious terms. I have to resort to things that sometimes sound like conspiracy theories, and yet what I'm actually reflecting on has nothing to do with conspiracy theories. Understand the origin of these conspiracies, all right? That is people assuming that there is a larger force, and often this gets translated into dark forces, like a shadow government, like a deep state or whatever. And these forces do exist, all right? So it's not a conspiracy, really. But sometimes you also have to understand why they have to exist. So I'm not justifying or excusing anything here. I'm just trying to make you understand that if it was really up to all individual people here on this planet, and where the overall consciousness level of most of the people here on this planet is located. It's located on avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. All right, on these ego paradigms, all right, and dog eats dog, and greed and getting, having things, owning things, all right. If it was all up to just that, all right, we would be living in a much different world, okay? So sometimes it requires few, who see, the larger development of things, to initiate things, all right. So there is an overall evolution that is taking place that nobody can stop, all right, and that is in the nature of divine creation, to seek the next sort of upgrade, to seek the version that functions better, all right. But we all here as humans come in that we as individuals can stand up and realize that this divine creation is actually part of us, that we are part of it, and that if we really want to make changes and want to release the collective into its self-responsibility, that it has to start with us. It has to start within us. And so the themes here for this week have a lot to do with our karmic setup, understanding that, understanding our inner darkness, embracing it, not being afraid of going there, understanding why we have schisms, inner conflicts, and inner fragmentation, and also beginning to see that even the adversity, the pain, and the suffering in our life has a purpose, and that purpose is to guide us onto our path, is to give us this little push into our destiny. So sometimes I call this syntropy, where I remind those of you who understand a little bit of this holographic nature of a divine creation, that if you align yourself to the higher power that has created all this, the divine God, source, whatever you want to call this, well, then you become part of that and the manifestation of that, all right? And so it comes down to literally what you dwell on, you do well on. And not in the sense that it's your fault if you got sick. I got sick last week with migraine and the side effects of that. It's not about that. It's understanding that, okay, sometimes, your energy will be, more exposed, or you'll be run down, and you just won't have the power to fight it, to ward it all off as you normally do. So what do? Instead of going into victimhood and your sob story, you go into like, okay, what have I learned here through these previous weeks that allowed for me to get run down, or that allowed for me to get trapped in my own darkness. All right. So the point of this is always goes back to no longer externalizing our power to make changes, but to internalize them. And part of that is to understand that the ego that tries to more or less internalize only successes and externalize the failures, all right, that this is it's not our adversary, but this is what messes, what tampers with our perception. It creates a lens through which we see our life, and this is then the story that we create. All right, we allow our lives a story, our karmic drama play, to be exactly according to our ego reality. And this is then basically the choice that we have to make, because when we go into this deeper connection with our true self, we begin to feel impulses and promptings that point us at a different direction. And many of us get caught or get stuck in that place because we can feel exactly what it is that we need to do, but we are too afraid. Or we still believe too much in our sob story, that we don't have the power to do this anyway. Or we say, oh, yeah, I can't do this because I have no money, or because I have no partner, or because I have, and we're waiting. All right. So this next week here will bring so much more clarity for you guys in regards to how this waiting and externalizing of all that is really just a big ego illusion. And it will make it a lot easier for you to understand that self-doubt and not feeling worthy, and not feeling good enough, not allowing yourself to have fun, to enjoy what you're doing, that those are nothing but belief systems often conditioned into you through your karmic family setup. All right. So let's look at how this translates here in the collective in this next week. Stuff that goes on the political arena, the true agendas that are becoming more and more visible, of the misuse of power in the past. So, that is something that has huge consequences here. But also, and this is something that conspiracy theorists sometimes forget, there's an inevitability about this, all right? So for as long as humans are driven by their solar plexus, by dog eats dog, and by competing, and by greed and desire and addiction and so forth, this isn't going to change, all right? There'll always be people who seek to be more special than others, who seek to be in power over others, okay? So with all this knowledge is also a bit of a catch-22 that we find ourselves in, and the clarity that I mentioned earlier. is more or less in regards to that, not that you can change the reality, but that you can pick the reality. All right, yeah, you can see yourself as a victim of dark forces or a victim of the deep state or whatever, but you can also choose to no longer wait for external stuff to happen to rescue you or to change your situation. You can also, choose to believe that you are actually the miracle worker, and that you choose, sort of the kind of miracle that you want, and then go for that. Then really embody that. That was the soul embodiment aspect that we talked about last week. Okay, so let's go through the layers here, how this translates. Okay, so in our energy centers, the chakras for next week, first chakra, that's all your karmic stuff, that's all your inner child stuff, all your shadow stuff. All right, this is as simple as I can explain this, guys. It has to do with your deepest sense of belonging, with your deepest sense of security, the right to be here. Do I have enough money to pay my bills? Am I even lovable? All right, self-worth, etc. This will then be sort of further turned on by a conflict in your third and fourth chakra. So there's a part in you, this prompting, that wants you to go more into your heart, that wants you to feel more, but at the same time, you'll also feel this, anger and frustration, that you feel like a victim and you don't want this anymore. And, and that can go two ways. You can go and resubscribe to your sob story, or this can go into, getting or finally feeling the courage to do something about this and, to change this. All right. It's, I hate to say it because it sounds like a broken record, but, if you keep energizing the same things, you're not going to get any different results, guys. So you got to understand that this whole shift, this whole transformation, this whole transition that we're in here right now is about shifting the paradigm, shifting the lens, okay, with which you see yourself and the life that you are creating. And so as a third big aspect here on your energy centers is the 6th and 7th chakra. Both of them are going to open up. Both of them are going to try to work together. And here's important again that you don't slip up into this spiritual woo-woo land, okay? It's important that you stay with truth and with the practical aspect of, your spirituality. All right, because only there you can find truth. You will find cool metaphysical theories and philosophies and all that, in the woo-woo land. But they're not going to help you to translate this into your practical life. When you have a physical condition or you have issues with your relationships or you have persistent money issues, none of that is going to help you. It has to come into balance with truth. You have to be willing to see things the way they are, and then you can work with them. All right, so physically, guys, I know this has been a very challenging time here in these last weeks. There was a temporal replication that happened last week, or is actually happening right now. So it basically mirrored, this is the way this looked like to me, mirrored the condition from 3-4 weeks ago. All right, so you were re-experiencing the exact same thing that you had already experienced, not so much because you did anything wrong, but simply because of the energetic quality of this field that you were exposed to. Okay, so this next week, though, it will translate differently. So not so much your direct head, maybe your neck still a little bit, and of course, if you it got seriously sort of misaligned here through all the tension in your body, then it's probably a good idea to realign, to have yourself readjusted, realigned by a chiropractor, or if you want to go deeper, do shiatsu or rolfing. Those things help, to realign yourself. Realigning, to a new story is really the overall theme here for next week. So, allow that to happen. But where you will most likely feel this if you don't do anything is in your vascular system, in your circulatory system. All right, so you got to watch this a little bit. Those of you with high blood pressure and those of you with low blood pressure, you'll feel a little vulnerable here next week. The best way, in my view, to counteract this and also to include your immune system, to strengthen all this, is to stimulate your lymphatic system. I've talked about this many times. Like work with cold hot showers, work with foods that help to uh, uh, calm your central nervous system, and of course also breathing and mindfulness, meditation, and walking in nature, as I have been recommending for the past weeks. It's all about your nervous system, okay? And if you help your immune system to become stronger, then your circulation will be stronger. If your circulation is stronger, then all the toxins, everything can be released better. Then your nervous system doesn't have to go into this sort of emergency mode, fight, flight, or freeze, adrenaline, cortisol, and you don't get fatigued as easily. You can see, and then you can sleep better, and then your immune system gets stronger, and you start feeling better about yourself, and so forth. You see, it's a whole big cascade, all right, of becoming aware of how all these things work into another. All right, so my tip for you is take a time out, realign, focus on managing your condition for now, and seek more balance. Align also to beauty and aesthetics. If you feel really low, guys, I know that especially females here have felt really, really low these last 2 weeks. This was the heavy lunar influence that can mess with our hormones. Lock yourself into the bathroom, all right? Take a 2-hour bath, whatever, you know what I mean. Put makeup on, get yourself a new dress, invest $10 into yourself to make yourself feel better. Try something new, try a new haircut, all right? Invest in yourself to feel better. Allow yourself to feel good. Remember, even if you were a mom, even if you, have committed to certain projects at work or whatever, if you have duties, you are better at what you're doing when your energy is in the right place, when you're more balanced, and when can tap into your inner creativity more, rather than just being a fire putter outer. You're also a better mom or a better dad if you were more connected with yourself. So send all your critical inner voices to where they came from and say, look, before I can think about how to solve any of these bigger problems, let me feel good about myself first. All right. Emotionally, you understand, the things that I mentioned earlier, they will trigger your emotional schisms. But I don't want you to get afraid of this, okay? So some of you freak out when you get stuck in your schism, because all of a sudden you feel like completely disconnected from yourself. I want you to see this as signaling from within. Take this as a lesson in what happens to you when your emotions and your nervous system, when they go ballistic, and when they go into this fight, flight, or freeze, when they pull you into your ego. Understand that your emotional state is tied to your physical and the conditioning that you have. So a lot of this points back to your childhood, to your attachment styles, to how you understand love, how you understand the validation of yourself. And instead of going into memories, because they always trigger your past experiences, go or stay into the present moment. Let that story go. By letting it go, you're not disregarding it or minimizing it. I know that many of us have experienced a lot of adverse childhood experiences or trauma. All right, this isn't about negating this, but in order to be able to integrate this and the emotional impact that it had on you, and the energetic impact that it had on you, and the physical impact that it had on you, you've got to drop the story behind it that keeps recreating it. So don't feed into your emotions, feed your soul instead, guys. Let go of externalizing, how you feel, all right? And trust that your soul is pointing you at what you need to feel in order to make better choices, in order to align yourself better to your true destiny. Mentally, obviously, times like this always lead to us sort of hyper intellectualizing, spiritualizing, futurizing, and also for those of us with a lot of trauma, to dissociating from our emotions. This is not what I meant with the emotional layer or the emotional tips that I gave you just right now. Dissociating means cutting it completely off. And this is when those of us who have this tendency to dissociate, we will feel completely cut off from source all of a sudden if we allow this to happen. So again, here, it's always the same. It's like stay in the present. And, to manifest this also intellectually and conceptually is to begin to embrace the congruence, live what you learn, express what your values are, express your boundaries, express your integrity. Don't just think it, do it, be it. All right? Stop identifying with your fears or with, your ego that suggests control or that suggests anger. All right? Don't identify with it. Accept it, that it's there. Okay, I can feel emotions of anger. I can feel my need to control. But don't, feed it. Question it. Next week is not a good time to make big life decisions, guys. So, it's more about learning and seeing things and allowing you to, that allows you to realize sort of what this past paradigm, this old paradigm of you, making decisions and choosing the reality that you live in, what that was based on, so that you can better understand what needs to be changed. Okay? Socially, in relationships, in your family, well, a lot of you guys already went through quite a bit of karmic family stuff here, and this will continue. All right, this has to do with the first chakra, and the way we metabolize, the things that drive us, forward, but also that keep us captive. Okay, and there's no better place as our social friends, our family, and our work environments where this is the place where all this manifests. Okay, so make a conscious effort here to see what the choices are that you're making with your behavior in regards to others. And if there is maybe a correction needed, where you go into like, I don't think that this truly expressed, my values or what I stand for or my boundaries or my integrity. And then don't shy away from going back and make corrections. Last week, guys, was the week of apologies for me. Okay, so I got pulled into my emotions as well. But see, when you learn to become a better energy manager, this pull, this lash out, it lasts on maybe 2 minutes or, maybe 2 hours. But then you get past it and you can rewrite it. You know that you can correct it, all right? And not 2 weeks or 2 months, all right? So remember that you don't need to have the answers for all the big questions right now. You just need to choose that you no longer want to waste your energy with repetition. You no longer want to waste your energy with the same old, same old. And one more tip here in regards to karmic family, especially those of you, who are beginning to see some of these conditionings and programmings through your karmic setup. Remember that your siblings are in this too. They carry the same karmic setup, all right? And maybe this helps you to understand them a little better and to pick them up where they're at, as opposed to judging them or competing with them or comparing. It's this, when you begin to be more compassionate and forgiving with yourself, you also begin to respect other people's journeys more. You see the true self in others, even your parents and your siblings. All right, just take that as a hint here, for where you truly want to look. Spiritually, that there's a reason for things the way they are. It doesn't mean that we have no free will and we are manipulated by dark forces. this isn't the same. This is only from the ego's perspective. But if you go into your higher understanding, your divine Wi-Fi that allows you to see things from a larger consciousness perspective, okay, you'll understand why things had to be the way they were. Because frankly, would you have changed anything if everything was hunky-dory? No. It is in our human nature to only change something when the pain of staying where we're at becomes greater than the fear of the unknown. And I'm 100% sure that you, as well as myself, as well as anybody I know, needed our pain in order to grow. All right, and if you can see karma from this perspective and then contextualize destiny more as, the path that you can choose, and where the paradigm of free will then grips. And then you become to understand the spiritual meaning of all of this on a much deeper level. Now, energetically, so sorry to say this, another week, in the row of 4, 5, 6 weeks now almost of astral bombardment. So 6 and 7 chakra times are always really heavy on your dreams. It's hard to sleep. It's hard to discern energies. People feel, foreign energies. You see things moving out of the corner of your eyes all the time. Okay, so, there's a lot of this sort of astral gunk, floating around. My tip for you is consciously learn what's yours and what isn't. And how does this tie in with what I said earlier? The better you know your own darkness, and the better you know your own integrity and your own true self, the less you get confused about what's yours and what isn't. The better you become at discerning what you can control and what you can't control. All right? So understand that your darkness is part of your pathway to your higher potential, to your destiny. Okay? So tune into your shadow, tune into your inner child, tune into, some of the karmic stuff and see what's behind that. What's the hologram behind it? What's the calling? What's the yearning? And use this as your new navigator. Pain is your ship on your journey. Ego is your navigator, at least in the beginning of your journey. Desire is your engine. Karma is the ocean that you were placed in. Love is your fuel. And destiny is the course you choose and the story you create. All right, so understand how things such as shadow work, energy, clearings, and so forth, how they tie into you becoming a self-master of your energy, a self-master of your destiny. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.